Hello everyone, today we are lifting the veil on one of the most critical yet understudied pillars of the Qin Dynasty, the first unified imperial regime in Chinese history. Its strictly centralized, politically weaponized, sacrificial system. This is not a collection of primitive rituals. It is a masterstroke of statecraft that wove divine authority into every layer of Qin governance, turning heaven itself into a tool of absolute power. For decades, scholars have cross-referenced records of the grand historian, Qin, legal texts, and groundbreaking archaeological evidence from the Yongqing Xueqi site to reconstruct this hidden divine order. And what emerges is a chilling blueprint of how religion and autocracy fused to sustain China's first empire. Let us begin with the very heart of Qin worship, the Ji sacrifice system, centered in the ancient Qin capital of Yongqing, an elevated plateau believed to be the closest mortal space to the gods. Long before unification, Qin rulers had built a series of sacred altars called Zhi to worship the five directional deities, a cosmology tied to the five virtues theory that justified Qin's conquest of all under heaven. Qin Xianggong first established the Shi Zhi to worship the White Emperor patron deity of the West, marking Qin's claim to divine legitimacy as a regional power. Later, Qin Wenguang added the Fu Zhi, Qin Xuangong, the Mi Zhi, for the Green Emperor, and Qin Linggong the Upper Zhi and Lower Zhi for the Yellow Emperor and Red Emperor, respectively, forming the core Yong Zhi, the highest state ritual of Qin. After unifying the six warring states in 221 BCE, Qin Shi Huang elevated these local rituals to imperial ceremonies, declaring the Qin the legitimate ruler of all divine realms under the mandate of heaven. The Yong Zhi were no longer Qin's tribal shrines. They became the cosmic altar of the entire Chinese world, where the emperor alone acted as high priest, the only mortal allowed to communicate directly with the supreme celestial deities. Each sacrifice followed an ironclad protocol, 3 years of strict purification offerings of dark-colored horses, yellow oxen, and black sheep, matching Qin's reverence for black as the color of water virtue, which overcame the Zhou's fire. Virtue and jade tablets, inscribed with imperial prayers, buried deep in sacrificial pits. Archaeologists at the Xueqi site have unearthed perfectly preserved animal remains, jade artifacts, and ritual foundations that match every detail recorded in Sima Tian's work, proving the historical accuracy of these grand ceremonies. Beyond heaven, worship the Qin built a rigid hierarchy of mountain and river sacrifices, standardizing the chaotic local nature worship of the conquered states into a centralized state cult. Qin Shi Huang ordered imperial officials to categorize all famous mountains and rivers across the empire into eastern and western zones, each with fixed sacrifice times, offerings, and ceremonial grades. East of Xiao Mountains, 5 great mountains including Mount Tai and Mount Heng, and 2 major rivers, the Huai and Ji, were worshipped with spring and autumn rituals, using a single young ox per shrine. West of Hua Mountain, 7 sacred peaks including Mount Hua and Mount Qi, and 4 vital rivers, the Yellow River, Yangtze, and Han River, received higher-grade sacrifices, with additional grain offerings for mountains near the capital Xianyang, signifying their closer tie to imperial authority. No local lord or commoner was allowed to hold unauthorized sacrifices. Qin law strictly banned unofficial strange shrines, with violators fined 2 suits of armor, a harsh penalty that crushed regional religious autonomy and forced all divine favor to flow through the imperial court. This was not religious tolerance, it was religious monopolization, turning nature spirits into agents of imperial control. The third pillar of Qin's sacrificial system was ancestral worship, anchored in the classic 7-temple system for emperors, a ritual structure that linked blood lineage to political legitimacy. After Qin Shi Huang's death, Emperor Shi ordered the establishment of 7 imperial ancestral temples, elevating the first emperor's temple to the supreme Ji temple, the holiest shrine, where all regions of the empire must offer tributes. All ancestral temples before Qin Xianggong were abolished, streamlining the royal lineage to center on the Qin imperial bloodline and emphasize the unbroken divine right of the ruling house. The emperor personally conducted seasonal sacrifices to his ancestors, while imperial officials managed routine ceremonies, making ancestral worship a daily reminder of the emperor's dual role as political ruler and patriarch of the entire nation. Unlike the Zhou dynasty, which shared ritual power with feudal lords, the Qin concentrated all sacrificial authority in the emperor and his appointed officials, led by the Minister of Ceremonies and the Grand Invocator, who oversaw every ritual, detail, from the preparation of offerings to the recitation of prayers. This bureaucratic control eliminated any chance of religious groups challenging imperial power, making the sacrificial system an extension of the Qin's brutal legalist governance. What makes the Qin sacrificial system truly revolutionary is its complete subordination of religion to political power. Every ritual, every deity, every offering was designed to serve one goal: to prove that Qin Shi Huang's rule was not just military conquest, but a divine mandate ordained by heaven. The Fengshan sacrifice on Mount Tai in 219 BCE was the ultimate display of this ideology. Qin Shi Huang climbed the sacred mountain, burned offerings to heaven, and declared himself the only legitimate emperor under heaven, merging the roles of warrior, lawgiver, and high priest into one invincible figure. The Qin did not merely adopt traditional rituals. They remade them into a tool of national unity, erasing the religious identities of the conquered states, and replacing them with a single imperial cult that bound all people to the Qin throne. This system was so effective that it became the foundation of sacrificial rituals for all subsequent Chinese dynasties, shaping the relationship between imperial power and divine authority for over 2,000 years. Yet, this rigid, all-controlling sacred order contained the seeds of the Qin's collapse. By banning all local worship and forcing people to submit to a single imperial religion, the Qin destroyed the cultural roots that held communities together, creating widespread resentment that exploded into rebellion after Qin Shi Huang's death. The very system that legitimized his rule also dehumanized his people, turning sacred rituals into instruments of oppression, and proving that even divine mandate cannot sustain a regime that crushes the spirit of its people. The Qin sacrificial system remains a haunting lesson in the danger of merging absolute power with religious authority, a dark chapter in history where heaven and earth became prisoners of one man's ambition. From the smoke of Yongcheng's sacred altars to the silent pits of the Xueqi site, every artifact and every record tells the story of an empire that tried to rule heaven and earth alike. It is a story of power, piety, and hubris that continues to echo through the ages, reminding us that the most powerful empires are not built on swords alone, but on the stories they tell about their own divine right to rule. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient China, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more epic history